Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you all for being such great listeners, and I appreciate every one of you. Please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Tonight, our Detroit Pistons are winners for the fifth time, 113 to 106 over the Charlotte Hornets. So great job, guys. We got to see the debut of Monte Morris, and he was better than we could have expected. He was real nervous coming into the game. He could hardly sleep last night. He hasn't played since March and in a real game, and so it's been a long, hard rehab for him, but I'm thrilled to see him out there. He got out there and he knocked down his first shot was a three, and he knocked it down, so that was great. I loved watching. There are a lot of great things we're going to talk about tonight, but I just got to say this, that we need to either fire Monty or trade Ivey or trade Killian. I'm not sure. It takes the joy out of me. Ivey played 22 minutes tonight, and Killian played 27 minutes tonight. And anyway, it's just, what are we trying to do? What is our goal? Is Killian the key to our future? And sure, we want to win the games, and will we have lost the game with Ivey out there? Who knows? But you just got to play him. I was proud of Monty for playing Asar. He played 26 minutes. I'd like him to play more than that, but he put him in there, back in and out, to play defense, which he drew a charge on LaMelo at the end of the game. We also need to thank LaMelo Ball. Thank you, LaMelo Ball. He was one of the reasons we won. He was 6 for 21 shooting, 1 for 8 on threes, scored 17 points, and he had a bunch of turnovers too. So that was a big reason why we won. We held the Hornets to 14. It's funny, the Hornets are not a good team, and they'll jack up a lot of bad shots. And Miles Bridges, he didn't shoot very well. He was 7 for 21. So, but they scored 40 points in the third quarter against us, and then they scored 14 in the fourth. And I just still say this, put in Killian, and Killian played down in crunch time, and you say we won, we did, but we went from the 7:33 mark to the 2-minute mark. We didn't score, and Killian was out there, and he wasn't the one missing the shots because he doesn't want to shoot. Bogey missed a bunch of shots, and Burks missed a shot at least or two. So it's not all on Killian, but I'm just saying that, you say we won, Killian played down the stretch, but we had that long stretch where we did not score. And I don't know. It just is, like I said, Monty doesn't like Ivey. It's undeniable. He, in press conferences, if Ivey makes a bad turnover, a no-look pass for a turnover, Monty says it in the press conference at the end after the game. If Ivey shoots a pull-up three off the dribble in transition in a game, last game, Monty says it in the press conference. And then tonight, he benched him. He just benched him. He just sat him down, and I'm sure Ivey made a bad turnover. He did. He dribbled into a bunch of people, and he lost the ball. Well, Ivey had 2 turnovers tonight. Sasser drove down towards the baseline and jacked the ball up over and threw it over and turned it over. Burks, he can shoot terrible, terrible shots and shoot a bad percentage, and he still plays. But whatever reason, again, it's one thing about making people be accountable, but it's always Jaden Ivey. So when Monty is looking for a reason to take him out, he's looking for a reason not to play him. He had to be told by the organization to play him, and now we have this 21-year-old guy who's played really great lately. And they're not going to be consistent, but he has to play. And Killian's a restricted free agent. Well, I told you about the Moneyball movie where the general manager, Billy Bean, traded this player that was no good, so that because the manager just kept on playing him, even though he was, unproductive. But we'll get into that more. Tough news: Jim Harbaugh signed with the Chargers, but it was great having him here at Michigan. He turned the program around. He got us the national championship, and that's, I think we can only feel good about that. But it is still, what in the world is going to happen with the guard rotation when Cade comes back? Who's going to sit? Sasser deserves to play, and Cade's going to be taking up a lot of minutes, and obviously Monte Morris, they're bringing him back gradually. He only played 11 minutes tonight, but he needs to play, I would think, 20 some minutes. So my only thought is what's going to have to happen, but of course it's not going to do what I ask. He never does. But Cade and Ivey and Bogey and either Asar or Stu should start. I don't care which one, or and Duran, and then Monty comes in, and Burks and Asar or Stewart again, and then but we need to stagger people. And my opinion is that we always stagger Cade and Ivey, which again, Monty doesn't believe in Ivey. He's proven it. Again, the only reason he gets to play is because people have to tell him to play him or to let him have the ball in his hands, and he still looks for a reason to take him out. But Ivey and Cade need to be staggered. I've said it repeatedly. And then when Cade's out, Ivey needs to be the one that handles the ball. And when Ivey's out, Cade needs to handle the ball. And then when they're both in together, my feeling is that Cade should handle the ball 75% of the time, approximately, and Ivey 25% of the time. And then you also want to stagger Asar and Duran. And they can play together, but you always want to have one of those two guys on the court, because it's better not to have them both on the court, because they're both non-shooters and they're both good in the dunker spot, and they both go down the pick and roll, and they both rebound the crap out of the ball. So stagger those two guys, and then you got Bogey, and and if you want to throw Muscala in there for a minute or two, I don't know. It's just going to be very interesting what happens Saturday, because I'm really confident Cade's going to come back and play. So we got another big chance for a win Saturday. We're playing the Wizards, and so it'll be very, very fascinating to see what happens with the rotations on Saturday. Then we got to turn right around and play OKC on Sunday, and that'll be not a back-to-back for them, but it'll be a back-to-back for us, and it'll be interesting because it'll be interesting Saturday. It's hard for players, their clocks, their natural clock is not used to playing games at noon, so I'm not sure why that game is at noon. I know the Sunday game got moved from 6 to 2 so that everybody could watch the Lions play. Let's go Lions. Burks and Bogey, so they had a timeout near the end of the game, and so we had that long stretch where we could not make a basket. We went 4.5 minutes without scoring a point, and again, Ivey wasn't in the game, so don't blame Ivey, Monty. But Monty called the play, and then Burks and Bogey say, "Oh no, let's run this play," and they run it, and then Bogey makes the three. So Bogey had a great night, but he did struggle down the stretch, and he's done that before. I don't know if he's tired, but he missed. He shot a real high percentage still, but he missed like at least four in a row, I think, in that stretch where we couldn't score. So that was tough. Another news: Cade Cunningham did not get invited to the 2024 USA National Team pool. So they invited 41 guys, and so 41 guys, and Cade's not invited, and that means that's not just 41 guys out of the NBA. That's all the international players. I mean, there's a whole slew of guys that are on like Team Canada, and every foreign team has some NBA stars in it. So anyway, it's disappointing, and I thought after his performance last summer, he played, he was the star of the show last summer when the select team scrimmaged the national team. But the thing is, all the guys that played on the team, the FIBA team that went and were disappointing this last year, they all got to be invited to the pool automatically. So, I mean, every one of them is on the list still, like Austin Reeves, and he played good in that, and Josh Hart, and some of those guys that were on that team, and Walker Kessler. So they're going to be, a lot of them are eliminated. So there's hardly any spots, and very few of those guys, I think Halliburton and Ant-Man will probably get invited back and play on the Olympic team in France, but I think a lot of those guys spots are going to go to Steph Curry, LeBron James, and we already know Embiid said he wants to play, and so there's a lot of those big name guys are on the list of 40. But they invited Chris Paul and Aaron Gordon, and he's a good role player, but he can't shoot. They invited Scotty Barnes and not Cade, and we do. There's a chance that Cade turned it down, but I think Cade said he really wanted to play in it. But I'm ticked off. Steve Kerr's the coach of it, and he loved Cade and said how great he played, and Cade has something special inside him that I think that in his size and his the way he's so versatile, I think would really be a benefit for the team. But Grant Hill, our former Piston Grant Hill, is the head of the committee, so we can blame him. I know he said that Draymond didn't get invited because of the suspension, and some guys got invited just because they're bigger guys and there was a lack of size in the last Olympics. So anyway, I won't keep rambling on about that, but it was disappointing. Pistons did do something, I think. We can't guarantee it, but I think the Pistons got Adrian Griffin fired. So we played them two times in a row, back to back, and I think like a Saturday and then Monday, and then the next day he gets fired because the Pistons aren't very good, and they had two games that came right down to the wire against the Bucks, and so the Bucks fired him. So anyway, let's go through box score. Bogey had 33 points, 33 minutes, excuse me, 12 for 23, 5 for 10 on threes. Awesome job. 5 for 6 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 34 points. So that's what, I keep thinking we should win some games this year more than we've won, because somebody like Bogey's going to have that kind of a performance. Or just like, when Burks has had some, massive performances. But Stu, he played a Stu game tonight, solid as a rock. 4 for 8 shooting, 1 for 2 on threes, only 2 for 4 on free throws, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 11 points. So he's not going to score a lot. He's not going to, but he plays tough defense. He's out there battling. And Duren, only 21 minutes, but he gets fouls. He got a foul for setting an illegal pick, ball screen up high. And again, I think what the coaches need to do is tell those guys that if you get called for an illegal high screen, you need to run 100 sprints the next game, or find them something silly, just so that they're going to be hyper aware of not setting those, because those are just a turnover. And I know they don't do it on purpose, and they're trying to set a good screen. But anyway, Duren was 7 for 9, which was much better. He shot 1 reverse pivot, turnaround, fadeaway air ball, but so he only missed 1 other shot besides that, and he was 1 for 2 from 0 for 1 on free throws, which it always amazes me that he never gets fouled. 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 14 points, but he only played 21 minutes, but that was partly because of foul trouble. But Jaden Ivey, again, 22 minutes. Again, if Monty Williams is going to be there and he can't stand Ivey, which everything shows that he doesn't, and Ivey can never have faith in him. He doesn't, because he knows that Monty doesn't have faith in him. And so how can you go out there and play when you know your coach doesn't believe in you and looks for every reason to criticize you or take you out? But he played 22 minutes. He was 4 for 10. He missed a shot at the end. His percentage wasn't bad. He missed that 3, because otherwise he was 4 for 9 before that, which isn't bad. And he was 1 for 2 on threes, which wasn't bad, but he missed that 1 3. When he finally got back in the game after sitting out like 12 minutes, he went out in the third quarter early, and then he didn't come back until like the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and then they took him back out again anyway. So he had 1 rebound, 3 assists, and 2 turnovers, and that 1 turnover was a bad one. It was bad, but other guys make turnovers, Killian's inbounding the ball the game before this. He throws the ball in bounds and turns it over, and it's a layup for the other team. And tonight, so we have Killian inbounding the ball late in the game. We're up. We have the game in hand. We just can't turn it over. And so we have him take it out, because why? But he takes it out, and he has to call timeout because he can't get the ball in. And then, anyway, I feel bad because it sounds like I just hate Killian. But he played 27 minutes. He was 2 for 3, which is good. But he only takes 3 shots. They don't guard him. He made a 3. He had 1 wide open 3 in the corner, shot an air ball. He shot another 3. Everybody like ran away from him. It was crazy to watch it. He was at the 3-point line. He caught it. He held it. He looked to pass it. And then everybody ran away from him. So finally he shot it and he made it. So good for him. But he 1 for 3 on free throws. So his percentage on free throws has just gone downhill. And so, what does that say? But he had 8 assists and a great one to Duren at the end of the game for a dunk. Shot clock was running down. He had the ball, and usually he forces up a pull up. He found Duren slicing to the basket, and he only had 1 turnover and 6 points. So, but he's a non-scorer, and so again, you have all these guys out there that are non-scorers. But what are we going to do? Again, there has to be a decision made. Somebody's got to make now. It's got to be forced, because with Cade coming back there and with Monte Morris coming back, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens because Monty Williams loves Killian Hayes. They have something going there. I don't know. He looks for every reason to play Killian. He looks for every reason not to play Ivey. So sorry, I'm glad he played 26 minutes. He was 3 for 4. He almost jumped too early on alley oop, but he went up over the rim. He was still on his way down, and a guy fouled him, and he still put the ball in the basket. But he's 3 for 4. He was 0 for 1 on threes, 1 for 2 on free throws. He had only 2 rebounds and an assist and 2 steals and 2 turnovers and 7 points. But I'm going to say it again for 100th time. The core 4, they just got to play. You just got to play them close to 30 minutes or more every game. And Knox. So this is a problem. Again, I said this repeatedly. I want Knox on the team, but now with these guys all coming back, he can't play. He was 0 for 4, 13 minutes only, 0 for 2, but he had 4 rebounds in 13 minutes, which is great. Muscala, Gallo didn't play tonight, so that was interesting. But Muscala played only 13 minutes, 2 for 5, 1 for 4 on threes. So again, that's going to be a challenge because he was on fire. Him and Gallo made every shot, and then they haven't been shooting that good this year. So who knows what will happen? There is something to be said for people do have to guard him, and people are going to guard Gallo, and so that makes a difference. Like I said, people don't guard Killian. People don't guard Stu. People don't guard certain people, and they just know. They just don't. And that, like I said, Ivey drove into some traffic, but there was no spacing there because Killian was on the floor, and anyway. Monte Morris, again, 11 minutes, 3 for 4, 1 for 1 on threes, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 points in only 11 minutes. And he's not always going to be that productive in that few minutes, but it was great to see him out there. It just uplifted the team, you could tell. Burks, 26 minutes, 4 for 11. So, that's not a great percentage at all. He was 4 for 9 on threes, which really matters. And 0 rebounds, 1 assist in 26 minutes. We had 15 points, and we need him out there until we find a good trade for him. But and then so that's what has to happen. So somebody's got to have to get traded. And again, I don't know what's going to happen there. But the trade deadline is a week from tomorrow. So if you're probably going to be listening to this tomorrow, so it's going to be a week. It's on Thursday in 2 weeks. Yeah, not a week from tomorrow, 2 weeks. So Sasser, 12 minutes, 2 for 5, 1 for 4, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 5 points. So he didn't play good. So that's the hard thing. But here's the interesting thing. He scored 9 points more than Killian on the season. Sasser scored 9 points more than Killian. Killian's played like 350 minutes more than Sasser has. So what does that tell you? But anyway, the Pistons shot 50% tonight. Hornets are not good on defense. And 15 for 38. They shot on threes 40%. And ironically, the Hornets shot the same percentage. And so they had some guys that shot it really, really well. P.J. Washington was 4 for 6. And my guy, Brandon Miller, was 5 for 10 on threes. So he had 23 points, and he's a really good player. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And I hope you stick around for the whole episode. I got some interesting stories that I think that you're going to like and want to listen to. We're going to talk a bunch about officiating in the NBA. Yeah, I'm just going to skip over to that. So here we had, the Hornets in their last game a couple nights ago played Minnesota Timberwolves, who are the best team in the West and hardly have lost a home game. So they're playing in Minnesota. The last 2 minutes of that game, and by the way, Karl Anthony Towns had 62 points. But in the NBA, after every game, the NBA releases a report. It's called the last 2 minute report, and it goes over all the calls that were missed in the last 2 minutes of every game. They do it. So the last 2 minutes of this game, there were 10 calls that were called wrong. According to the NBA, they break down the film and they analyze it, and they said there were 10 calls missed. 6 of them were against Minnesota, and they're playing at home, and they lost the game 128 to 125 to the Hornets, who aren't very good. So it was only their second home loss of the year, and they got hosed. But a little story let's go over this one too. Oklahoma City had beaten the Portland Trailblazers by 62 points this month, earlier in the month. 62 points. They played them last night, and um, the Blazers were ahead by 1 point, and they had the ball, and they dribbled it up the sideline, and they got trapped. Brogdon did, and he's a real good vet. He has the ball in his arms, and two guys are attacking him, and he's calling timeout and yelling timeout. The ref's right there. Chauncey Billups is right up on the sideline, out of his box, right up at the sideline, right next to the court, and he's yelling for a timeout. They don't give him a call, a timeout. The guys on the other team touched the ball, but they didn't knock it out of Brogdon's hands, and he dribbles it again after he had picked up his dribble. So they call it double dribble. So Chauncey obviously goes ballistic, gets a technical, and then he gets another technical. And so he's kicked out of the game, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes to the line, misses the first technical, makes the second one, ties the score. Jalen Williams makes a tough jumper, puts them ahead, and anyway, they end up OKC ends up winning the game because they got the two technicals, and they called timeout. So Portland is protesting it, filed a formal protest of the game, and so be interesting what happens. Rick Carlisle got kicked out. The Pacers got beat by Jokic made a three with a shot clock running down right at the end of the game that won the game for them. But just a lot of interesting things happening in the NBA all the time. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a little story. So the last time that two players scored, so Embiid scored 70, and then I think I mentioned that in my last podcast, and Towns scored 62. So the last time two guys scored over 60 points was April 9th, 1978. And one of the games where David Thompson, he was unbelievable. People don't even know about him. He started out in the ABA, and he got and he's a great person. Everybody loves him, but he got involved in drugs. He got addicted to some drugs, and he ended up, his career got cut short, and he was an all-star, and he's still one of the greatest players. And people that watched back then, he could fly. His name was Skywalker. That was his nickname. And they had good nicknames back then. And George Gervin went to Eastern Michigan University, and when anybody ever talks about the finger roll, it's about the Iceman. That's his nickname, because he had ice in his veins, George Gervin. So last game of the season, George Gervin, they're going for the scoring title. It's within 14 points of who's ahead. I think Gervin was ahead by 14 points going into the last game. So Thompson played in Detroit at Cobo, the last game ever played at Cobo Hall, and then the next year they went to the Silverdome and played. But there were only like 3,000, a little over 3,000 people at the game, and David Thompson scored 78 points. But he played first, so Gervin knew that how many points he scored, how many points he needed to score to win, to beat him out for the scoring title. And so anyway, Gervin ended up scoring 63 points. So he won by 4 points. He outscored him by 4 points total out of the whole thousands and thousands of points he scored. But the Pistons had ML Carr playing for him, and Ben Poquette, who I was in the same dorm as him at Central Michigan University, and Poquette played for the Pistons, but he played for some other NBA teams, and he played on the greatest Central Michigan University team in history that went and played in the Midwest Regionals. And Chris Ford, who played for some championship Celtics teams and coached some championship Celtics teams. Eric Money, who went to the University of Detroit. And so anyway, that was some of the guys that were on the Pistons back then. But anyway, that was a fun time. I remember when all that happened and that came down in that last game of the season. It was really cool. So anyway, I'm excited about Saturday. Again, it'll be interesting what happens, and I appreciate you all listening, and please subscribe again, and it makes a difference on how many people get to listen to my podcast, how much it's put out there. So be the reason that somebody feels cared and loved, and go Pistons. Let's beat the Wizards.